Heat best the Spurs in Game 7 in Miami for back-to-back championships. Your first take next with the three wise men. And good morning, Montclair. Another wake-up version of the three wise men on this beautiful, sunny Friday morning, June 21st, and sunny indeed in South Beach as the Heat knock off the Spurs in Game 7. Will we call it an epic? Will we call it a classic Game 7 of all time? That's for the guys on my left and right, respectively, the one and only hometown hero, Mike Goldstein, and, of course, Double D, Dennis D'Addario.
We're back.
The three wise men are reunited after about 5-6 weeks. Boys, the Heat win back-to-back. Game 7 last night. Michael, let's start with you.
The Yankees lost last night.
Nobody cares.
Vernon Wells hasn't had a hit in a month.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
No, nobody.
You got
right
Zach
now,
Wheeler. You've
right,
got
right now,
Harvey,
right here.
Wheeler, the Mets. There's a future for the Metsies.
That's for the next.
Your take, in spite of missing the last.
I fell asleep with
four.
I fell asleep 4 minutes left in the game, and I went to bed praying. I went to bed praying the Spurs could hang on.
Stay up for the last 4 minutes?
I couldn't stay up.
Now, tell me why you went to bed praying that the Spurs. Let's start with that.
Well, I always
forget about the fact that you fell asleep because that's not a surprise.
I'm that type of person. I always root for the underdog. I always see the glass half full, and I always root for the underdog. So I was rooting for the Spurs hard last night until I fell asleep.
Now,
my daughter tapped me on the shoulder somewhere around 2:30 in the morning when she got home and said, "In case you're interested, the Heat won."
Did you have any impressions on whatever of the game you stayed up to watch?
Here's my impression. LeBron James is the best basketball player I've ever seen.
Ever?
Whether it's the decade of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, or now.
Hyperbole, huh?
Well, he is. He is. You know, if LeBron James, if they put LeBron James in a time tunnel and transferred him back into the 70s, they would think he came from another planet.
I know, this Knicks team could beat that team in '73.
You know what?
Here we go
you
again
guys
with
are,
that. I asked you for your impressions of the game. Give me your impressions of what you watched.
This is what I
for once, answer the question.
It was an intensely played, highly competitive, tremendous athletic event last night. That was my impression. Every single possession was Armageddon.
Except for the last 4 minutes, which you didn't see.
Well, I fell asleep. But what I saw up until that, every possession was challenged. Every possession was Armageddon.
I thought it was some of the sloppiest basketball in a huge spot I've ever seen teams play. The first quarter was it was brutal basketball. Guys couldn't hang on to the ball, unforced turnovers. It was pitiful. And LeBron James finally, in my mind, answered the bell and had a fabulous game. He was tremendous from about after the first 7 or 8 minutes, would you say, Danny?
Yeah, but he hit a couple of big shots, even when they were down 5 early, to make sure the Spurs didn't just separate and find them climbing the rest of the way.
And nobody could make shots early. Nobody could run an offense smoothly. And I'm not going to get credit to defense because it was just a lot of couldn't hang on to the ball, bad passes. And yet, despite as well as LeBron played, and he was tremendous in all aspects of the game last night, I got to say, his one shortcoming has always been consistent jump shot, 5 for 10 from 3, and then especially down the stretch, knocking down the medium range jump shot. Wade, same thing from the left side, that left side all night long. But still, there they are down the stretch, a possession, 2 possessions down, and the Spurs continued to fumble the game away. Manu Ginobili was just a human turnover these last 2 games. He literally cost them Game 6.
And could not hit a big shot.
He played as bad a game as anyone, especially a terrific player, could play in Game 6 when the Spurs just gave the game away, gave the title away. And again last night, brutal turnovers in the second half. The Heat did nothing to force those. It was absolutely unforced errors. The Spurs left it on the table, and despite as well as those guys played, 90-88, the ball in Tim Duncan's hands. He turns for a little baby hook / layup, okay, over Shane Battier. Missed the tip. LeBron knocks down the jumper, 2 in a row.
Spurs were begging LeBron and Wade to take that mid-range.
Well, they did it all series, and it was the right way to play it. But here's what I'd say. We take, first of all, kudos to the Heat, who are probably the most disliked champion I can remember in a long time. Still disliked. They went likable, unlikable to kind of likable, now back to unlikable. And most of America's rooting for the Spurs in this series.
Not as unlikable as the start, though.
No.
As at the beginning.
And you loved ridiculing them when they couldn't win, when they lost to Dallas and all that.
Absolutely.
But what came out of this was, and I think he's a great coach, but Greg Popovich has to be called out, and he was in some of the post-game press conferences, some of the moves. Duncan on the bench at the end of Game 6. Where was Parker last night when Ginobili's throwing the ball all over the place? I mean, Greg Popovich, again, and I'm sounding like I'm cushioning it, but Greg Popovich, terrific coach, made some, in my opinion, some big personnel errors. And has to at least give an explanation as to why
he
those
won't,
guys
though.
are on the bench.
You realize that's
he
his
doesn't.
shtick
Al
now.
and I listened to it on the bike on the way in.
Enough already, okay? Because, and Van Gundy pointed it out in Game 6. When Mike Breen said, do you think they'll have Tony call timeout, get time? Boom. All right. In a late possession, he specifically called timeout to get Tony Parker back in the game. And then they have got that game locked up.
Stock and barrel.
Okay? The championship is theirs. Ginobili misses the huge free throw. Right? They give away a 3 at the other end by not getting an offensive rebound, defensive rebound. Duncan not in the game.
You wanted the timeout at 90-88.
They take him out of the game again. They don't get the offensive rebound. All right? And Allen knocks down the 3. All right? Then they come down in overtime with the opportunity, after Parker misses at the end, after they get the stop, and he's got the chance to call the timeout because he's got a timeout in his pocket and get him in the game down 1.
Yeah,
down 1, and what does he wind up with? Again, Manu Ginobili mindlessly charging to the rack, looking for a call, and you want to know something?
He got a little rake.
And nobody hates the officials more than me. You can't make that call.
No.
You can't give that bailout call because he didn't deserve that call.
Why didn't he deserve it?
Because he played like a stiff the entire game.
What's that to do with that particular play?
You don't get that.
Is that how they referee?
You want to know what?
So if you played a bad game and you drive the lane and you get hacked, you don't get the call because you played a bad game.
When you drive to the game
in the
mindlessly,
middle of the drive,
and there's nothing to do and nowhere to go.
Pull it in like that, and somebody comes across your arm a little bit.
Well, they didn't just
come
across his arm, though.
No, it just came
he
across
got
his arm.
butchered left and
if
right.
If he's going up and shooting and then you get it, then you're going to get it.
What I didn't see was the obvious walk that everyone's yelling about. Did you see him
No,
travel?
no.
I didn't see him
the usual Ginobili long.
It's hard to tell if that was contact, if it was Dallas.
And they're never
Here's the point. Here's the point. Timeouts are subjective. I'll give a coach that.
Tony Parker's got to be in
that
game.
If that's the reason you're taking the timeout, fine. But it's the personnel deployment that Greg Popovich has to.
And remember,
this is just. I agree with you. That's where he's more egregious because I think
Dal's
timeouts
saying
totally.
He needs the timeout to get the guy in the game, which fine.
And remember, this is after this guy has had a horror show.
Yeah.
This is after this guy has had a game.
He was going to live and die with Manu.
He's going to live and die with Manu when he's 2 guys.
And he died with him.
And he shows the loyalty to Manu. He starts him game before he has a great game. Then he sticks with him in an absolutely horror show of a game when he's got his 2 best players off the court.
They got him for only 4 turnovers last night. It seemed like he had about 24.
Because he had him in the most important spots. Duncan not in the game in the most important spot on the defensive end twice, cost him, and his best offensive player not on the court. Down 1, game on the line.
6,
for
11,
a guy, and
12.
he puts the ball in the hands of a guy who was a human turnover the entire night. That is inexcusable.
And when the Spurs have 13 assists in a game, they're not clicking in spite of the fact that they were right there. That should be a 20 assist game. Parker dealing the way he deals, and
it'll be a long off season.
Before that series, which I thought the Spurs were going to win easily. I liked them easily. I thought so. I was wrong. But I thought the ball being in Parker's hands 95% of the time. Never saw Ginobili handling the ball as much as he did. Turns out it was a mistake.
When the series started, I thought the only way the Spurs could win, and I picked the Heat in 6,
right,
was if Tony Parker had 4 great games. He did not have anywhere near 4 great games. He had 1 really, really good game, right, which is the first game in Miami, which they won. And I would say he was pretty much mediocre the rest of the way. Now, I'm going to give some of that credit to the Heat defense and LeBron James, absolutely. We're going to touch more on Game 7, a little baseball when we get back. We'll talk about the stumbling Yankees and, is there light at the end of the tunnel for the New York Mets? Back with more of the 3 Wise Men right after this.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Ready or not, here I come.
Take time to be a dad today.
Three wise men are back: Renato, Dodaro, and Goldstein.
This is not. Excuse me. This is not a prop, by the way. I'm really.
He is actually checking last night's statistics, folks. This is not, us just trying to look
Wi-Fi
like we
in
know
the
what we're
building,
talking
folks.
about.
Come on.
Absolutely. Now, Michael, I know it's not your bailiwick, but your thoughts on
that 20 rating that the NBA
Spurs
got.
Say Ballyhoo or Ballywick?
bailiwick.
Bailiwick.
The Spurs being this close to a fifth championship. Is the window now shut?
Oh, of course it's shut. You get within seconds of winning and you don't, and you had opportunities to win that game, many opportunities to win that game, and this has got to be a crushing defeat, crushing for all of them. And I think as they like to say, the core, they may be all back next year, but again, they're all now another year older. I think it's going to be an impossible situation, and the West is very tough. So I think they got some breaks this year getting to the finals. I think it's pretty much over, but they've had a hell of a run.
It's rare, but I think there is absolutely nothing for me to add to that because I agree with you 100%. The West is tough. They got some breaks with the injuries to Westbrook and Kobe. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a Laker fan. I'm not going to sit there and say that the Lakers would have beaten the Spurs, but I think they would have been more of a challenge if the Lakers were.
Now, this would have been the icing on the cake. It would have,
It was the
it really
coup de
was. It really
Absolutely.
was, and
the
it
fifth
just, it just didn't
The
happen.
rarefied air. Join Magic Johnson. Join Kobe Bryant with your fifth title for Duncan.
You didn't know it at the time.
Past Shaq.
But you didn't know it at the time. But back in 2001, when the Yankees lost in the ninth inning to the Diamondbacks, which would have been their fourth consecutive World Series, you didn't know that it was going to sort of come to an end. I guess
never do.
Well, you kind of do
No,
with this group because of their
this
age.
group.
But with the Yankees, that would have been sort of like the icing on the cake, the coup de grace then, although you didn't realize it. You thought they'd get back there every year.
And to me, that's why I think you saw a Tim Duncan that I didn't know if we were going to see. I actually said on the radio a couple days ago, I called Russo and I said,
I thought you had your own show.
we do, right here. the
No, I
Three
thought on a different station.
I said, do you think Duncan has one more in him of maybe a 32-18 game? And boy, I'm sitting there the other night, and he's got
25
at
in the
half.
first half, I know.
Okay,
Yeah, that was
and he
his
wound up with 30.
30.
He wound up with 30 and 17. Another bucket, another
Yeah.
rebound, and they have a championship.
Yeah.
They was
But-
that was his sellout that he was talking about in the Grizzlies.
Because
I'll
that
give you-
would have given him the fifth, past his Shaq.
And he was selling out right there. He's saying, I'm giving you everything I've got
absolutely.
right here.
And now, and I think you really hit on it, the West is very tough. These guys are much, much older than we've known them to be in the past. Each year they grow older as a group. They've rebuilt. Everybody talks about the Spurs are like this franchise of record where they continue to roll. But now, Denny, because of the age of this group and because of how difficult it is to bring in free agency with the luxury tax being as high as it is, et cetera, where do the Spurs go from here?
I've got one qualifier.
Where do
to
the Spurs
this.
go from here?
They've got his incredibly bad decisions, I think, personnel decisions notwithstanding. They still have the combination of Buford, the GM, and Popovich to reconstruct. I mean, they call it now the Spurs way, and they seem to have a knack for doing this. Now, Duncan's 37, can't see him getting any better. Ginobili's 35 and looks like he can't play at this level anymore, almost. Not on a night-to-night basis. He had one good one. Parker's 31. He has a couple of good years left, but it's certainly not enough to carry the Spurs. I just think you have to reserve your decision until you see the Spurs actually, gravitate to a 42-42 or 41-41 record, like the Lakers did a few years ago.
So you'll believe it when you see it, is what
I'll
you're saying.
believe it when I see it.
How about a Spurs-Nets finals next year? Jason Kidd leads the Nets to the finals.
Now, there is one guy that they can count on, and he was really, to me, the breakout player of this series. I thought one of the top 2 or 3 players in this entire series was Leonard. I thought he...
But is he a carry? Is he a carry the team?
Remember, it's only his second year.
Yeah,
and,
I love him. He's a good player.
And he is a wonderful player, great attitude, great at both. Because remember, he defended LeBron James for a good chunk of this series. And when LeBron James defended him, he blew by him quite a bit.
He was only the second or third best player on those San Diego State teams. That's what they do.
He was taking LeBron James to the rack.
I think they found him in the 19th slot, right? 19th slot. That's what they do. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, no, remember, Indiana drafted him. That was the George Hill trade.
That's right. You're right. That was the trade.
So let's give Indiana some credit for finding
right.
him. And then they made a deal where they gave up something that they really liked. George Hill was one of Popovich's favorite players, but he got a wonderful young player who last night at 90-85 knocked down a 3 from the right wing, made it 90-88. They got to stop.
And then
he came down.
Duncan
on the
take-
left
don't take
wing,
that
and
one.
I'm watching. I'm saying, don't take it yet. Don't. You just
Reverse
remember,
it
don't
back
take
out
it.
top and
And
get it. Yeah.
call a timeout. Get your guys some rest. Take a blow, and call a timeout
Okay,
before he takes that.
He wasn't going to call a time. Here's
No.
the problem with the
I almost
Spurs.
wanted him to call a timeout
They-
before he took the shot.
The timeout thing. Yeah, here's the thing about the Spurs. You've watched the Spurs do this repeatedly and always execute, but they couldn't execute. And you got to give Miami some credit defensively.
Yes,
I
but
mean,
they executed very poorly.
No,
all
that
night. They had a
shot
lot
is
of
the
turnovers.
final. That was
So
the final
if
death blow.
LeBron now has got 2, let's say
2-2 in the finals.
Okay, so you one of the qualifiers for you is that he's lost
Well,
2 in
you
the
gotta-
finals.
you
So
No,
gotta-
if he-
I'm just saying 2-2
so,
in the finals.
So if he wins,
Magic was
if
5
he
and
wins
4.
in his, in
Kobe's
the,
5 and 3.
Okay, so what if he ends up 6-2 in the finals? Let's say he wins 4 more. Let's
right,
conservatively 3 more, 5-2. Does that get him enough?
No, Michael's
to
6
pass-
and 0.
what?
Michael's
To pass
6.
Jordan?
No. Michael's 6 and 0.
No, you can't pass 6. You can't pass. Again, it's an easy argument. 6 championship appearances.
So it's only based on championships.
No. 6 championship appearances.
I understand.
6 titles. 6 MVPs in the championship.
So then Bill Russell-
The 2 years they didn't win it, he wasn't there.
Bill Russell's a better player than Michael Jordan. Then
No.
in your equation is he's 11-2.
Well, you
Is
have,
that 11
you
and
have to
2?
balance off who he's playing with, and I mean, he.
No, then the argument is Sam Jones is better than Jerry West. Okay, that's everybody's argument.
But
Is
we'll
everybody's
say-
argument is Russell's better than Wilt because of those.
We'll say this,
and I
there
will
w-
counter that by saying, how come nobody ever argues that Sam Jones is better than Jerry West? Because
Right.
Russell's a center.
There was an
Russell
elevation.
was the
though. There was an
centerpiece
elevation
of those teams?
There was an elevation of status last night, though. Game 7,
Yes.
he put on a performance.
Yes.
that-
Yes.
Absolutely.
And how about his fourth quarter in Game 6?
Not bad. But
Not
last
until the
night-
end.
Last
Until
night,
the end.
He had a couple of faux pas
Yeah.
at the end.
Well,
He
those
missed
are
a
big-
shot.
those
He
are-
threw a
those
couple
could've-
away. I
those
agree.
could've ended their
Those
season.
were just faux pas.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, he played great for the first 11
Oh
minutes
my
of the
God,
fourth
looked
quarter.
great, like a man possessed.
Yes, and
man
then,
on
and
fire.
then made 2 mammoth turnovers
Huge.
that looked like he kissed the championship goodbye.
Yeah.
Huge. And,
And
Ray
then,
Allen
missed,
bailed
and
him
then
out.
missed the first 3. They got the offensive rebound to his credit, made the second, and then missed the second 3 to tie it.
I still
I
think
should say the Spurs bailed him out by not rebounding, and then Ray Allen.
I still
their
stand by
season alive.
if this guy was sent back into any decade you want, they would look at him like,
You could
what?
say that
Where
about
he?
Jordan.
And,
you
and
would
we
say
get in
that
this
about-
fight all the time because if we send
Hey,
him
Wilt
back,
did play back in the. Wilt's the
Exactly.
strongest man alive. Played back in the.
again, you
60s
never want to bring
into
the guys forward and give
No.
them the
Yeah, I know.
benefit of everything of today.
I'd
but
bring
you'll
Wilt.
take-
I'd bring
Wilt
Wilt
could
forward.
throw
He
bodies
wouldn't
around
score-
in
He
any-
wouldn't score 20
Oh,
points
you're
in
nuts.
today's game.
You're nuts.
Wilt would throw bodies
You're
around in the
nuts.
paint
Oh, you
today.
guys are nuts.
You're nuts.
And, oh God,
You haven't
come
got a clue.
on.
He's
You
not
haven't got a
doing
clue.
that stupid,
Wilt
funky
said,
finger
"I
roll
wanna-
that he's
Oh,
doing.
he just dunked.
He said, "I want to lead the league in scoring." He did. I want to lead the league in rebounding. He did.
He
I
was
want to lead
playing
the league in
against a
assists.
bunch of
He did.
midgets
Okay.
back then.
Right, Nate Thurman,
I
Bill
mean, Nate
Russell.
Thurman was as athletic as you or me.
Okay, you
No,
are
and
just
by the way, that's
close.
when you could get hammered, and they didn't call it. There was no go to the line with a flagrant
Go
foul.
watch a replay of the 70.
You-
I watched the
you
replay of the
haven't
73
got
Nick Lakers
any-
final
You
the
are
other day.
nuts.
You
It
haven't
is like
got-
watching. It's like
You must
slow
have fallen
motion.
asleep in the last 4
The
minutes of all
game
those
is
games.
Gail
huh?
Goodrich. Oh, he'd really do well in today's
You
league.
Hey,
haven't
as
got
Hubie
a
says,
clue.
good shooting makes up for a multitude of
You
sins.
haven't got
Oh,
a
man.
clue on what you're talking about.
LeBron
when it
James
comes
took
to the
a,
history
but
of the
LeBron
sport.
James did take a
Took
step
a
up.
step forward and
Big step.
and he shut me up. He
Game
played,
sevens.
He played
Me
a
too.
great Game 7 in all aspects of the game.
Can we get to baseball?
When we come back, the 3 wise men will touch on a little MLB, Mike's ever-sinking New York Yankees as the injuries continue to mount. Is A-Rod going to come
A-Rod's
back?
coming back. I've got it on.
Well, they better because they've
He
got.
has it on high authority. He's going to tell us who that high authority is right after this. Back with more of the 3 wise men.
Welcome to my block party. Glad you can make it.
The only triple doubles you get come with fries.
I can do this all day. Your moves are just gay.
Using gay to mean dumb or stupid, not cool.
Not cool.
Not in my house, not anywhere. It's not creative, it's offensive to gay people. And you're better than that.
3 wise men are back on this Friday morning. We put the NBA to bed, and it is wall-to-wall baseball. Yankees, Mets, Michael, your boys from the Bronx, banged up. Euclid out again. Teixeira, back, gone. Granderson, back, gone. A-Rod back.
I hope so.
Don Adams from Get Smart playing third base.
They need him. I mean, not Don Adams, but they need A-Rod back.
Well, how do
Hey,
you know he's going to be effective though, Mike?
Well, listen,
I mean,
Denny, history will tell you that he'll probably be no less effective than Don Adams is at third base. Listen,
Is 86 around?
the Yankees are probably, I thought they were going to be north of 90. I can't say I believe that anymore.
If we go to the tape, I think I said around 85.
Well,
I gave you 87.
85 is
I gave you
85 is starting to look good. But you know something, if this team goes south and they fall out of the race, it could even be worse than 85. You know, you could have a lot of guys walking around there with hanging their heads. Now, and that could be Girardi's toughest deal down the road, trying
What
to
about
keep
the
this
captain?
team
Is he
motivated.
And
He
how
took
about
batting
that?
practice,
That
apparently.
is something we really have not. No one has really touched on because all these other injuries
Oh.
has really overshadowed the fact that Jeter, who they thought originally was going to be back to start the season, not even close.
You know, Pettit hasn't pitched very well of late. There's a guy you say,
40 years old.
I understand that,
Well,
but
that's the
Pettit,
reasons.
everyone, Pettit's great. Pettit's great.
Because
Pettit,
you
you
put
can rely
the
on Pettit. You
pinstripes
really
on.
can't rely on Pettit. You can't. He has not pitched well of late. The best pitcher by far has been Kuroda. CeCe's up and down. You know,
But it's really the offense.
No, their offense
their
is
their
they're-
lineup.
it's horrible.
It's
horrible, especially when they try out a lefty.
But their lineup is a bunch of
Well, the
has-beens.
plan was to have
It's a bunch-
these guys.
It's a bunch of spare parts.
Plan was to have these guys hold the fort until
Right.
these stars got back. They got
Right.
back and they're gone again.
Right.
And now it's just.
And look, you can't predict, but there's no way you can go into the season thinking Granderson's going to miss the first 6 weeks,
No, he
come
got hit by
back,
pitches
get hit
twice.
again,
Yeah.
and be out again.
I'm going to tell you the most exciting thing in New York baseball
You
this
could,
year.
excuse me, Mike. You could predict the Rodriguez stuff. You can't predict Teixeira Granderson.
No, Granderson got hit by a pitch. in
No,
his
I'm
hand.
saying
I mean,
you
it's
can't predict
ridiculous.
Teixeira Granderson, but you can predict. You could have your doubts about Rodriguez. Derek is 37, 38 years old. I mean, it's going to happen. Because you put the pinstripes on, Mike. I know you think differently. That does not put like Superman's suit on.
You know,
Well,
but
it did for a while
It
for
did.
Wells.
It really did. You start
That's true.
believing it. You know, here it is in the middle of
Overbay.
May, and the Yankees can't lose, and Wells is bashing the ball, and Overbay and Hafner. And I say, if you just put the uniform on, you're automatically gifted.
But then, as you've said so many times, 162
It's a long
games.
season.
It's a long season, and there's a reason these guys are where they are. There's a reason nobody wanted them. There's a reason nobody wanted to pay these guys millions of dollars because they can't play
Well,
every
they
day.
did pay Vernon Wells, but that was a mistake.
They can't play every day effectively anymore. Now you started to
Now,
touch on
Ichiro's
different.
yeah, he has
Ichiro's
come
a
back a
different
little
kinda
bit.
guy.
You see a little life.
Ichiro's
Right.
an
He's gonna
extraordinary
get
talent.
hits the way he gets hits.
But what I was,
Because he doesn't rely on power. He can still play, and he can still run,
and he can still play defense.
and he
boy.
can still play
Oh, my
defense.
God.
Boy, oh boy, can he play defense.
Yeah.
Ichiro is a wonderful baseball player.
Yeah, and in a young body. You know, it's younger than his age. You know how they have this thing now, real age?
Yeah.
You know, you can put in all these numbers, and you might be 50 years old, but it tells you, Denny, in your case, you're really like 66, 67.
I'm really like, 36.
Yeah, okay. But listen,
It's like dog years.
if you go cross town,
I'm dog years in reverse.
dare I say this, the future of the Mets with these two guys, the pressure on Alderson now and his little brain trust, they got to put some players behind these guys because God forbid, you don't put players behind these two pitchers.
Well, do you think they're just going to leave them out there hanging? No, they're gonna. Now they've got Darnold who's supposed to be real good. We'll see as a catcher in the minors.
They have a lot of other positions
Let
to
me give you a
fill.
personal perspective, and this is for Met fans. Giants were awful after the Bonds era. What did they do? Drafted Lincecum, Kane, Bumgarner, all first rounders. That's how you build it. They were the core of that pitching staff. Harvey, Wheeler, traded from my Giants, and it was Giant fans can't say a thing about it. It was the right thing to do for both teams.
And you got Neese and G, who are both pitching
Get
well.
Neese in between them. Working with Neese it's the second call now on shoulder
Right.
problems. Shoulder's bad, but you'd like to get that lefty right between those two power righties, and you've got something going.
All
and
right.
you do think they're going to go out and get people. don't you?
Absolutely. They have to. And here's why. Because they have the opportunity, as much as you may not want to admit it, and I think you will, they have the opportunity
Take over the town, is that what you're
to
going to say?
take over the town the way they did.
Oh, where's the boss when we need him?
In the mid-'80s, because the same thing happened to the Yankees that's happened to the Yankees now. They got old, right? Their highbrow, big money players got traded off, right? They had nothing to replace them with in terms of young talent. The Mets had all the young talent. They traded for Carter. They traded for Hernandez to supplement the young pitching. Well, now is the time to strike while the iron is hot because they have the young pitching. The Yankees are falling apart. They're getting old. They have nothing to supplant in terms of young players. Now is the opportunity with payroll clearing for the Mets to bring in high-priced offensive
We got
talent
Pineda. He's coming
Okay.
back.
at both the free agent level.
Heck of a trade.
and-
Montero's in
and-
the minors, and Pineda can't get on the mound.
and trade for them and take over the town. Can they do it?
I think it's
You know, long way to go. You're being a little bit dramatic.
Hey, the opportunity's ripe. Here's the problem, though.
That brings me back. Number one, do you agree with my premise
Yes.
that the opportunity is
The
there?
opportunity is ripe, but here's the problem. Maybe Lucas Duda at first. There isn't another Met position player that even makes me think something can happen going forward with this guy. Duda might hit a few home runs and play first. You know, Ike Davis is about 700. It sounds like he needs 3 shrinks in the minors. I mean, Tejada has flamed out already. Daniel Murphy, I'll give you Daniel Murphy, decent player, but nothing to say. You know, you need that.
There's no
2
straw.
or 3.
There's no Strawberry.
Yeah, there's
well,
no
remember
Strawberry.
they traded for Carter.
Right.
They traded for Hernandez.
Yeah, I mean,
They
David.
traded for Ray Knight.
But if
All
a
these
team-
guys were not homegrown.
But we're not sure about their economic status yet. So if they're
There's
not,
nothing wrong with trading for. Well, they have nothing to trade other than Wheeler and Harvey.
they've got
so
some play. No,
they're going to have to go.
They've
They've
got
had
some
some
prospects
decent
in the
prospects.
minors.
They're going to have to go out via free agency next year and spend some money.
Absolutely.
That's what
can
they're
they?
gonna have
That's
to
the
do.
other question. I mean,
Wait,
is the money there to
financially?
spend? Is the money there
Well,
to spend?
You know something?
But it is right. Al's premise is correct. It is the time for the Mets to recapture because the Yankees, those Bs, what Betances, Benuelos,
Yeah.
whatever that, they flame out. If your prospects don't keep progressing and the guys get older, there's nothing there unless and if they're serious about staying under the $189 million threshold, well, I don't know what the Yankees are doing because they got to sign Cano. They've got a bunch of other big contracts out there still, and that 189 comes up real fast.
No, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the offseason with both teams. But we still have a very long way to
Yeah.
go in this season. And I think the Yankees are going to be much closer to my prediction of 85 wins than your prediction of over 90 because between the
What'd you have them at exactly?
I thought the Yankees would be 92 and 70.
I thought 87.
And I think I'm going to be the winner on that one because between
Wow,
the-
you're being again. You're jumping the boat a little bit.
Yeah, it is a little-
automatically.
it is a little
we
quick.
got 3.5 months left in a baseball season.
I understand, but I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get worse.
What if their guys
because,
get back?
because of the injuries, okay?
So if Granderson comes back and A-Rod comes back and Teixeira eventually comes back, why would it get worse?
I don't think Teixeira's coming back. I think Teixeira's going to have surgery. I think he's done. I think the only-
You haven't even mentioned Cervelli coming back.
By the way,
Why? He can,
Why would I?
well, he's all right.
by the way,
coming
that
back to do what?
by the way, that Euclid thing
Hit
worked
2
out
home
well.
runs
didn't
and
it?
hit
Jeter
240.
took batting practice. You know, this team could look like a completely
Ow,
different team.
Derek took batting practice the other day.
Derek who?
But you guys act like there's no chance
Was
they're
that at the
coming
Polo?
back.
Coming back to do what? Coming back
play.
to play?
To play.
I haven't seen any indication they're going to come back and play. And even if they do, the division is getting better. Right? Tampa's getting better.
No one's running away with this
Hey,
division.
before we
Red Sox
before,
are actually getting better.
Before Al wraps this, we will talk golf next week and the possibility of me eating for free
2
in
for
Montclair.
2. Tiger needs to go 2 for 2.
And boy, was he in good shape after that second round, Mikey. Oh man,
One of these days, Mickelson's going to win a U.S. Open.
that may never happen.
Hey, passing on James Gandolfini real quick.
Sad. Shocking.
Setter for me, Dave Jennings. Great giant and a great guy.
A really nice man.
Yep.
And a great giant. And we will be back to talk about a lot of baseball and who knows, maybe the Stanley Cup Finals. Next time we meet, is 2-2 as they head back to
That's
Chicago?
a great series going on too.
If anybody's interested, Chicago-Boston as they battle for the Stanley Cup. More when we reconvene. Until next time, we are the men, and we will see you again.